think the folks that are getting access to the opportunity to put a giant mural on buildings around here, I think it's coming from a really limited pool. I think it's not necessarily taking into consideration challenges that artists face in terms of just communicating about their art. So let alone writing a grant proposal or applying to, receive a grant to hang a mural in town. I think the process is probably prohibitive in certain ways.
I have a lot of mixed feelings because I think I want to respect property, and I think that there's a fine line there between doing something that is, crossing a line and not appropriate. But then on the other hand, I've found that graffiti can be incredibly enriching to my experience of a city and maybe bring out some problems that may not be obvious on the surface, but are underlying. So it's like a way to engage in those issues that wouldn't come out in a funded public art project.
I love graffiti, and we got a new dumpster in the back. They swapped it out, and it was there for a day before it got tagged. And aesthetically, it's not my favorite thing all the time, but I don't know, somebody going out at night and tagging the dumpster or tagging a wall of a commercial building, there's a lot worse things people can be doing with their time, and there's some self-expression.
So one of the things that Montpelier Live does is works to make our downtown beautiful and to welcome visitors and create sort of moments of wonder and beauty in our downtown. And public art is really important for creating a place that's unique and celebrating the sort of personality of Montpelier. I can certainly appreciate that in some forms graffiti can be a kind of artwork, and in other ways graffiti can be damaging and not beautiful at all. Especially like some tagging where it's just like someone's name written on something.
Montpelier's a little more artsy than it was when we grew up here, but it was trending that way.
How do you feel about graffiti in this?
I think that graffiti is good. It's a expression of art, provided it's not offensive to people.
I don't love it, but I mean, like, if it's city funded, I think that would be really cool. But just random graffiti just on the side of buildings on like dumpsters, I'm not as cool with. But
even on the small scale, under our roof here, we sell the work of multiple coworkers' art. A lot of us are actually artists, and they've never sold their work anywhere before. They've never gone about that process, and just having stuff up here and selling it, I think has definitely empowered people to, pursue that a little more.
The reason I became a video teacher was I was offered the job while I was working at the public access TV station here in Rutland, and I figured it would be a good fit because I have a degree in broadcast journalism from Emerson College in Boston.
For me, it started when I was a kid, probably 13 years old. I'd always loved storytelling and writing stories and things like that, and video games, and loved movies, but didn't realize that you could make them. And so when I was 13 and I sort of found out, Average Joe could make a movie, I was hooked, and that was it. And so I saved up my allowance and little work money, and bought my first camera, and it's basically been it since I was 13. There's never been a plan B. There's never been a backup. And what I didn't realize at that age, because I had no exposure to the actual industry, but I actually really love the industry of making films as well. Like, it's this kind of crazy, it's like being in the circus. Every week you're in a different place, you're working with a new crew. You get to go to these places that you would have never gotten to go to if you weren't there for filming purposes. So I've had some really, really amazing experiences working in this industry, and wouldn't trade it for anything.
I got into video because I've always liked storytelling, and I feel like making videos was a really good way to tell really interesting stories and to put my perspective on the world in those stories, and that seemed really, really fun to me.
Ideally, you're creating a character that people can relate to and care about and think are interesting, so that they're invested personally in the character. And then to do that, you have to know your audience. I could create a really awesome story about drunk driving for teenagers, but if I put the wrong main character into that story, you won't care. You won't be invested in that.
I feel like characters are the most important part of a film, because no matter how crazy and elaborate your story and plot is, I don't think it's really going to matter to the general audience, because when you're watching a film, you're really watching the characters and their progression through the story and their arcs. But if they don't have any interesting character growth or character arcs, you're just not going to care.
Having a character that is likable, not even necessarily likable being most important, but relatable. There's plenty of characters in the history of storytelling that are not likable, but we still enjoy watching them. And I think that the big reason why is we understand their motivations. They want something, and we understand why they want it. We might not agree with them wanting it. We might not agree with how they go about getting it, but we at least understand what they want and their motivation for wanting it.
My view on filmmaking is that anyone can do it if they have technical aptitude to run a camera, get good audio, and ask questions.
I always film with an end product in mind. I'm thinking about my shots and how I'm going to edit them later. And do I have enough overall coverage to make something in the end? I'm going to leave a lot on the editing room floor. I'm going to cut a lot of stuff out, maybe even stuff I love. And I, of course, when I first start a project and I pitch a project, or someone pitches a project to me, I know my vision, my style, I know what I want to do with it. But yeah, I've had to redo, revise, sometimes even reshoot whole things because it didn't meet the client's vision. So sitting down first, doing a vision board, doing a storyboard, really showing them clips of your work, your style, because every editor, every filmmaker, every musician has a style. And just because I edit doesn't mean I'm going to edit the way you want your final product to look.
I want to join the film industry because I see a lot of movies nowadays with big visual effects that rely on really complicated plots, and they're not really interesting to me anymore because the characters aren't well developed, and it's not even about the characters. I want to make films that really dive deep into the characters and make you feel something, make you like the characters. That way, when something in the plot happens, you're almost rooting for those characters. I want the audience that watches my films to walk away feeling something for the characters, not just saying, oh, that was a cool action scene, but wow, that was a really interesting character and I like that.
What I would say to a young filmmaker, an aspiring filmmaker, the thing that I always come back to is not hard skills. It's not vitally important to know how each particular camera works, how that editing software works. You know, those are all great skills to have, but really it's the soft skills that get you far in this industry, and I'm sure in most. What I'm talking about is things like communication, things like a good attitude, things like problem solving. Those are the people that you want around you when you're on set, because making a film, making a commercial, music video, anything, that whole environment is chaos. And it's one problem after another. You're putting out fires constantly. So you want people who are able to adapt, able to communicate well, so that we can get through the day as productively as possible.
Snowboarding was first born in a small city in Michigan. In 1965, an engineer, Sherman Poppin, made a $1 million invention toy for his two daughters by attaching two skis together to ride and a rope to maintain your balance. Sherman is now considered the grandfather of snowboarding for paving the way to a fun future and modern boarding. He sadly passed away, but not forgotten, on July 31st, 2019. Here's a good buddy of mine, Dylan Honner, showing what it takes to be a local legend on the slopes.
How often do you go to Lou's?
I walk by it every single day. I would say at least once a week.
I went the first time this morning. I go to Lou's maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks.
These days, not too often, but whenever I'm stopping through Hanover and I've got a second, I'll stop in and get a crawler.
30 South Main Street is home to the Hanover restaurant and bakery Lou's. Thousands of individuals, Dartmouth students, young children, older folks, and the like, grace the restaurant's iconic green and white booths each year, craving the comforting buzz of a local diner. this classic breakfast spot leaves customers full of joy, memories, and cruller French toast.
In the midst of World War II, Lou Bressett decided to revamp a rundown restaurant in Hanover. As a recently discharged U.S. Marine veteran, he wanted to improve the town in a small way. When April 11, 1947 rolled around, Lou opened the doors to the public and welcomed them with donuts, cinnamon buns, and steaming coffee. After 33 years of operation, Lou passed the bakery to Bob Watson in 1980. Watson, who had some experience in Mexico, brought some new flavors to the menu. During the 80s, many considered Lou's to be the men's club, with one group of men in particular called the Breakfast Club.
In 1992, Patty and Toby Fried bought the restaurant from Watson. Toby brought many Austrian and German entrees and desserts to this local gem. In 2018, the Frieds turned the restaurant over to Jarrett and Kaylin Burke. Just like Lou, Jarrett is also a U.S. Marine veteran. Throughout the years, Lou's has remained a staple to downtown Hanover and will continue to be.
So, about 4 years ago, I graduated from business school, and one of the things that I learned while I was at business school was that I really wanted to be involved in small businesses. So a lot of people from business school end up going to, banks and consulting firms and stuff like that, and that didn't really interest me. I like being in a business that was more hands-on, that I had much more interaction with the employees and stuff like that. And so I started looking for businesses that essentially were getting ready to transition. And in my search, I ran across Toby and Patty Fried, who were the previous owners of Lou's, and they were looking to retire, and they wanted to make sure that Lou's was going to go to, another caring owner and a family. And so we came up with an agreement for me to take over the business. Lou Bressett grew up in Hanover, went to Hanover High School, and when he was, I think, 19 years old, he joined the Marine Corps. And this was before World War II, so he just was looking to go do something exciting. December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and all of a sudden the U.S. was thrust into war. And he fought on Guadalcanal. He was given medals for his valor and did some pretty incredible things. So when he came back in the mid-1940s, came back to Hanover, got out of the Marine Corps, and was looking for kind of his next move. And there was a restaurant here that was not doing so well, and he took it over in 1947 and called it Lou's, and was living out his dream of owning his own coffee shop. I moved to Hanover in 2015, and first heard about it, I think, when a lot of people move to Hanover. It's one of the first things you hear about. It's an institution in Hanover, not only for the local community but also for Dartmouth. And so, whenever you ask somebody the place to go for breakfast or for pastries, Lou's is usually the place that comes up. So I'm here about 5 days a week, typically during the week, and on the weekends I'll pop in, but I usually don't spend the whole day here on the weekends. I usually come in between 7:30 and 8:30. I have an office in the basement, and so I do all of the office work, so all the bookkeeping and accounting and marketing work and all that. And then I usually spend a couple hours in the office catching up, again, doing the bookkeeping, paying bills, things like that. I try and be up in the dining room when it gets busy around lunch. So typically lunch starts to get busy 10:30 or 11, and then I'll usually spend a couple hours up here helping out either in the dining room or in the kitchen. And then towards the end of the day, I'll usually end up back down in the office doing more of the office work. But I pitch in wherever's needed. So if someone calls out in the kitchen or out front, if something gets busy and any part of the restaurant needs help, I usually will pitch in where needed. I'm most proud of the people here, the staff. I think we have an incredible staff, and in the restaurant industry, sometimes it's tough. There's typically a lot of turnover and a lot of training and retraining, and I don't feel like we have that here. Most of our core staff has been here for many years and probably will be for many years. They're phenomenal people, and everyone here works hard and is passionate and cares about each other, cares about Lou's, and it shows in our food and the service that we provide. Yeah, I mean we're always changing things. We're always trying to adapt to new flavors and new desires from our customers. You know, in the past 4 years, we've gone through a lot of changes, especially with COVID. So we had to adapt a lot. We didn't lay anyone off or close the doors at all during COVID. And in order to do that, we had to change a lot of things. And so now in the post-COVID world, we're trying to figure out how to get back to the way business was before, you know, the things that people really liked, and also adapt to the things that people got to like during COVID. So we started doing a lot more takeout, we started doing a lot more delivery. We are moving outside during the summer, so we're gonna have our outdoor dining again, and that's gonna become a little bit more permanent this year. So every year it should be more repeatable after this year. We are also moving a portion of our bakery into the basement next door. This is the underbelly of Hanover. So where Gnome and Copy used to be, they moved down the street, and so we're taking over that space, and we're doing some renovations down there right now. So that'll expand our capacity a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, we have a continuous improvement mindset here, so we're always looking to make things better. My favorite dish is the Cowboy Bowl. So Cowboy Bowl is a quinoa cheddar hash with bacon, peppers, 2 poached eggs and a little sriracha on the top, and Monterey Jack cheese, and just the mix of flavors, a little bit of spice, the eggs, kind of coat your mouth. It's a phenomenal dish. We have a lot of regulars, and we see those people a lot, and it's really nice to see those people because it's familiar, and you get to know them and have great conversations with them. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to see the changes throughout the year and to adapt our business to the different customer bases.
It was great. I talked to a professor there, and I took my dad with me.
I just love the diner atmosphere in there. Everybody, it's a great experience just to go in. A lot of people, you want to find out what's going on around town, go into Lou's.
My kids and I often walk to school on Fridays, and so we leave early Friday mornings, like at 6:50, and stop and get crullers and continue on walking to the elementary and the middle school.
How long have you been going?
So let's see, 36 years? Yeah.
Talking with Jared Burke and people downtown showed us that Lou's is an integral part of Hanover. Its homey feeling and familiar faces show that the restaurant has been essential for building a strong community. Lou's will be celebrating its 75th anniversary on April 11th, 2022. Drop in to catch a glimpse of the diner's cozy atmosphere.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Vermont the Game. Now, All right, and let's get started. A pretty good selection of characters. I think I might just, well, yeah, I'll just stick with the standard. Yeah, okay, fine. All right, now, I got suggested this game by one of you guys, Fartslayer 9000. Thank you, Fartslayer. Pretty good graphics, The controls are very nice. It's very smooth. I like this game so far. I wonder if it's a set. Looks like we got an NPC here. Excuse me. I wonder what they want.
Traveler, please help me. My son is very sick and he needs 13 leaves for his treatment. Please, I need help, Traveler.
Alright, just looks like a standard fetch quest, you know? I'll accept it because, you know, it's a video game. Alright. Pretty good graphics. I like the walking noise. Oh, there's a leaf. Nice. Got another leaf. And another one. Wow, there's leaves all over the place. This game is pretty fun. Vermont seems like a nice place. And I would love to live there. Ah, nice. Another leaf. What a beautiful place. Have you guys seen In Space with Markiplier? It's pretty good. We spent about $13 on it. Go check it out. Pretty good graphics. That's the moment here. Is there a crouch? No. I wanted to go under the bleachers. Oh, can I get through here? It's just a canned animation. Nothing special. Oh, look, that person, they have a leaf for me. That was cool. I love interactions like that. This really makes you feel like you're gathering leaves. All right, now it looks like got all the leaves, I think.
You have 12 out of 13 leaves. One more to go.
Of course you do! Ah, you dingle fart! Ah, you poopy fart you! What happened? What happened?
lead with the shoe part. Because people are gonna be like, I want my face in
Like 6 months. 7 months.
I've had these shoes for 3 years.
For about a year.
2 or 3 years.
Approximately a year and a half.
8 years.
Almost a year.
You don't have to.
Yeah, they're my favorite.
I was looking for a good walking shoe at a reasonable price.
I have gotten every cent out of them. They are my old reliables.
I don't own a lot of shoes, but all the shoes that I have owned have been kind of weird and funky.
I'm gonna have to replace them this coming spring.
They're just very basic, and I like them.
I don't know, I go to school in them every day, so that's so exciting.
Yeah. They're my favorite pair. That's why I don't wear them a lot, so they don't get too worn out.
People assume that they're fake.
Does that bother you?
No, not really.
I don't make assumptions about people based off their shoes.
Honestly, they could have been better. They don't provide good sole support, but I like the style.
So yeah, you know, I think my shoes are a big part of my personality. You know, I just like to just have a more active lifestyle.
They're like, oh my God, look at those. They look like they have no sole support. What's she doing walking the streets in those? But I don't have a care in the world.
Definitely, yeah, I've like climbed up hills on these and stuff.
I mean, they're Doc Martens. They probably assume I'm gay.
They're comfy.
I don't own a lot of shoes, but all the shoes that I have owned have been kind of weird and funky. Like, these ones were replacing a pair of Converse that had dinosaurs on them, which I wore until they started talking because I felt like those shoes were definitely something that expressed like childishness, which is something that I really appreciate in fashion, like childishness and maximalism, I guess.
Like, I don't want to be held down by the confines of like shoes. I like to just be free. I like to just slide into the world. I like to be skating everywhere I go. I like to be in motion everywhere I go. I like to go through life and every day just wake up and say, let's get pitted.
These shoes have climbed Katahdin. They've harvested animals for sustenance, caught endless fish, survived 10 different jobs that I've had throughout the years. They've never led me astray.
Waveism, or the religion based off of microwaves, was created in 1572, when a man was gifted a microwave by a time traveler from far in the future. The man immediately started writing scriptures about the microwave and the man who gave it to him. However, even though it was created all the way back then, waveists still exist to this day. So I'm going to be interviewing some. Let's see how it goes.
When did you join Waveism?
About 6 years ago. Yeah, I've been a long-term supporter.
Good.
I have been devoted towards the ways of Waveism for 4 years. They have been 4 incredible years of worship and of loveliness in my life.
I've always believed in Waveism. It's really the only true and proven religion out of all of them. What are your opinions on the beliefs of Waveism?
I think it's fun and very nice. Yeah.
Dude, really? That happened?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Wavyism means that I can make cool things and then, just like worship.
It means that we are all one within the wave. Once a cycle begins, the cycle repeats. We live within the cycle of the wave.
Wavyism, what it means to me, it's my life, man. I have nothing without it. I'm a wavist through and through, man. How has wavyism changed you?
I got a third eye. Nichols. I fully support.
Before I was lost, I lived without wavies. Now I have the wavies, and I ride them every day.
They've definitely changed my mind a lot. I mean, sitting in that room surrounded by always-on microwaves, it's changed me a lot. I don't know how exactly, but I mean, my back hurts all the time now. I don't know if that's related. Could be, related to the knife at my back, because, I'm being lost. Alright. And then I'll ask the same question. And more of the question is, what is
You're
your
gonna die.
ideas on ladies?
Am I happy? Not really. Not really. Over a period of time, yeah. I'm like a good 150.
Alright.
So.
Hello, and welcome to the majestic state capital of Vermont, where we start our journey finding all the escalators in the state of Vermont. I'm your host, Zane Schiffman.
And I'm Jack Ross.
And come with us
as we find escalators in Vermont.
Okay, our question's very simple. Do you know where the escalators are in the state of Vermont?
The escalators?
Yes.
No.
I was thinking maybe they used to be in the mall in Burlington, but I don't think they are anymore if they ever were. So no.
Yeah, there's one in the mall.
In the mall?
Yeah.
Up in Burlington?
Yeah. No, wasn't there one in Sears?
I just moved here a year ago. I would have to guess they would be in, I know there's not one in that building because that's where I work. So no, I don't know.
I mean, I think there's a couple in the Burlington Mall, but beyond that, I can't really think of any.
Oh man. I feel like I've been on an escalator in Vermont, but I can't tell you where.
I'm visiting from Boston, so I'm not the expert.
Okay.
But I would guess Burlington, though I don't think I've been on any escalators anywhere in Vermont.
Great question. I don't know.
Okay.
Are there
Do you have any? Oh, there's supposedly 2 or 3.
There's one in the library, over at the Kellogg Hubbard Library.
In here?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll go check that
It
out.
took me a while, and there's one across the street at the City Center.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Thank you.
And I will bet that there's one down at Capitol Plaza.
Okay. We'll go check that out.
Here we are at the city center. We've been told there's an escalator here, so let's go check it out. It's automatic, obviously. Well, there's some stairs right here. Maybe there's an escalator right next to them. No escalators over the ledge. Where could they be? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's no escalators here. Where'd you go?
I'm lost.
Where'd you go?
I'm like on the second floor, I think.
You're just on the second floor? I mean, it's a really big building with a lot of escalators in it, so you might get lost pretty easily. Welcome to the Montpelier Library. The Kellogg Hubbard Library, established in 1894. Will there be an escalator? Let's find out. Oh, wait, excuse me. Is there any escalators in here?
No, I think you should find an escalator in Vermont. You have to go to Burlington.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to go to like the University Mall, or there used to be one at the downtown mall, but they demolished it. And I don't know of any others in the whole state.
Okay.
So, we're back at the Capitol. We've been told that there might be an escalator either here or at the governor's office. We're gonna ask some members of the Capitol grounds crew to see if they know. We're searching for all the escalators in the state of Vermont, and we were told by someone that there's an escalator in this building. Is there an escalator in this building? Is there one across the street? No. Any that you know of in Montpelier at all? All right.
So we just went through all of Montpelier, talked to a bunch of people, and they were all telling us to go to Burlington. So where are we going, Zane?
We're going to Burlington. We were told to check out the University Mall, Church Street Mall, Burlington Airport. So we'll go look around and maybe ask a few more people around there. We're going to the Church Street Mall to go see if we can find an escalator, as we were suggested there may be one here. Let's go. All right, we're coming up on the mall here. Let's go take a look. We've seen a couple of people be turned away, so we're thinking it might be closed, but we'll give it a check. Oh, look, it's closed. At the moment, we're just kind of chilling on Church Street. We might ask one or two people if they know if there's an escalator anywhere around here. And then we're gonna head over to University Mall before we head back.
I was wondering if you guys know where the escalators are in Vermont?
The escalators in Vermont?
Yeah.
Dude, that's a good question. I mean, now that I think about it, there used to be some in Burlington Town Place.
That's what we've heard.
Elsewhere, though, movie theaters, like in Williston.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only escalators I can think of.
I think movie theater in Williston?
There's a movie theater in Williston,
Okay.
some that used to be in this building, and then there's some in a couple buildings at UVM.
Okay.
But that's all I can think of.
One interesting thing is my former wife had a fear of escalators.
Wow.
Still, she won't get on them.
Yikes.
And I have a fear of elevators. So if there's a stairwell, we were together on that.
So right now, riding back to the car, we just learned some new information about a movie theater in Williston. Maybe there's an escalator there. Seems a little weird to me. Never really heard of that. Didn't know Williston was a real place. Yeah. We're headed home after a long day of finding no escalators, but finding a few good locations. So tomorrow we're gonna head to the Williston movie theater, the airport, and to, where is that?
The mall with, they said Sears at the mall in...
Yeah, supposedly the mall on Dorset Street. Should be pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we're quite a ways away from any of it right now, so we're gonna go home tomorrow and get a fresh start.
It is day 2 here. Driving back up to Burlington, this time without Zane because came down with a little sickness, so just me and Palmer today. And we're gonna go check out the mall, the airport, and a movie theater in Williston. Here we go. Here we are at the mall. About to head into the University Mall and see if we can find an escalator. It's a one-story mall. Not good looks. Nobody here's, oh, there's the Sears. They did tell us to go to the Sears. There's an escalator. Right? Or is that stairs? That's an escalator. Does that count? Can we count it? So we found our first escalator, technically. It's in the Sears that a lot of people were talking about, but I don't really think this one counts because it's closed. It's unlucky. We're still looking for 3 more, and hopefully we can find them today, tomorrow, sometime soon. We see a really tall building across the street. I don't know if you can see it from here, but there's a Barnes & Noble bookstore out there. Are we gonna go hopefully outside of it, maybe ask some people, see if there's an escalator in there. I'm gonna wait for someone to come out of the bookstore and ask if there's an escalator in there. I was wondering, is there an escalator in here? Really?
Yes.
Sweet, thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, I rode it like 5 times.
Oh, sweet. In we go. Found it. Hi, how's it going?
Are you planning on filming in here?
Is if possible, can we?
I have to call my home office.
Okay.
If you wanted to film inside the building. All right.
So we found our first escalator in the Barnes & Noble, but we weren't allowed to film in there, so you're just gonna have to trust us, I guess. 1 down, 2 more to go. I don't know, can I just like... I don't understand this intersection. Well, we're at the airport. We're gonna try to go in, see if there's escalators. Escalators found. We just hit the mother lode at the airport. We saw 2 pairs of escalators and 1 single. Best believe we got to ride on those. It was a thrilling experience. Off to the Williston movie theater we go. We're at the only movie theater we could find in Williston, and it doesn't look too promising right now. Like, it's pretty small to me, but hopefully there's somehow an escalator in there and we can get in and see it. It's locked, but let's look inside. Oh, I'm seeing escalators. Oh, looks like the sign reads that escalator not in service at this time. That's a shame. Broken escalators, the worst thing that could happen. But that wraps it up. That's all the escalators in Vermont. We just found all of the escalators in Vermont. We went to the Williston Movie Theater, the Burlington International Airport, and a Barnes & Noble.
I'm curious though, Jack, how does it work that Burlington's an international airport? It's such a small airport.
It's a tiny airport, Zen. I couldn't tell you, but there's definitely some international flights that you could take from there. No doubt about it.
That's pretty sweet. Well, until next time, until we get another challenge, we'll see ya.
Goodbye.
Could you please introduce yourself to us?
My name's Nancy Heil. Do you just want my name or?
Just anything about yourself that you want to tell us.
My name's Nancy Heil. I am the owner of Nancy the Girl. So the inspiration behind Nancy the Girl starts with just like dress up has always been my favorite activity in the world. And I wanted to create a safe space where people felt like they could try on different personas via clothing and not worry about their size or their gender. I felt like that was a missing link. And I really just also wanted like my dream dress-up environment that I had as a 5-year-old. I started Nancy the Girl online in 2017. For a while, it was just online store, and then when I was living in New York, I would do pop-ups in my apartment. So in New York, I was working a lot with drag queens and nightlife personalities. I was managing the wardrobe of Sasha Velour, who's a drag queen who won season 9 of Drag Race. And I got to spend 2 years helping her with her looks and with finding different accessories, and I got to travel and her show Smoke and Mirrors. I was in charge of all the quick changing backstage, and there were 16 looks, and some of them took like 3 seconds. You know, I've never thought of the Upper Valley as really being a fashion place, but there's some like incredible ball gowns that come out, and it's really cool getting to sell a ball gown from, you know, an elderly woman's home in Hanover to a drag queen in New York. And I didn't necessarily see that being the case, and that's been, you know, we do have hip stuff up here. New York, it was easier to sell sequins and glam and avant-garde type of clothing because people have a lot more opportunities to wear it. But I feel having the store in Vermont feels a lot more powerful because, especially for the queer community, I think that there aren't that many options in the Upper Valley or just in rural America in general to start experimenting. And it feels like there's a lot more of a need for this space here than there was in New York. There's one customer we have, and she's very, very private. She's a trans woman who came out later in her life, and she'll come by after for private shopping appointments. And that is really important to me, to have that as a sacred space for people. I think that clothing doesn't have a gender, and that society has put onto people what is appropriate for a boy and what is appropriate for a girl and what is a boy and what is a girl. I think that fashion industry-wise, clothing is made to look good on a hanger in a store. And so that supermodels are used to sell clothing because it's the closest you can get to a hanger. Thinness has been held to such a standard of beauty, at least since the turn of the century, I think. We really make an effort not to tell somebody like, oh my God, that makes you look so thin, or that's so slimming, and really focusing more on like how it makes you feel, not how it makes you look.
I love it.
Mostly I just want people to be happy and to feel good about themselves and to feel confident and to love themselves.
Do you believe in magic?
Absolutely.
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 To see Nancy the girl makes daydreams come true. Look at a person, be the Nancy in you.
My name is Hunter Green. I am 17 years old as of recording this. I'm a senior in high school, and I'm high functioning on the autism spectrum. I don't think I'm as disadvantaged as the outside eye may think I am. Some days it takes the entire day for me to know how I feel. I don't wake up and feel happy or energized. I wake up and I go through the motions, and then I lay down in bed at the end of the day and I say, wow, I was in a great mood today, or wow, that really, really sucked because I was in such a bad mood and I walked in with such a bad attitude. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I feel like I am so uncomfortable doing this right now. I've been practicing doing this for a week. I've been in COVID quarantine for a week, practicing doing this. I've saved none of the footage because I'm super uncomfortable and awkward doing this. And even after practicing for a week, I hate this. This is awful. This is just, you know, as I'm going through this, my mind is telling me that this documentary is probably one of the worst ideas I've ever had. And it's odd because when I first came up with the idea, I thought it was great. So I mean, I think I need to slow down. Story of my life. Over the months of senior year, a lot of self-doubt has built because I've had a lot of failures. Career-wise and school-wise, the last 2 years have been setback after setback and failure after failure. Especially this year with doing this video thing. I've had a lot of setbacks, a lot of failures, blow-ups even. Just a lot of bad days doing this. More bad days than I've had good doing this. And I don't rightly know how I feel about that. Days where I've come home and I've wondered if I need to find a new career path. So maybe this documentary is a cry for help. Maybe it's a shred of hope for me. I don't entirely know. The outside world has begun to make me believe that I am stupid. I've been called every word you can think of that means stupid. I've done stupid things. I've been called stupid for doing things that I thought were smart. One example, I carry pencils in my lunchbox, and I think this is smart because it's in such an odd place. My pencils are such an odd place that if I always put my pencils back in my lunchbox, I'll never forget where my pencils are. I think that's smart, but I've been totally made fun of over and over repeatedly for this. For the last week I've been in quarantine. I briefly mentioned that I tested positive for COVID last Sunday. As of the time I've recorded this, I've had 1 negative test. I need 1 more to go back to school tomorrow. So I'm really looking forward to that. I really miss my people in video. I miss my people in theater. Miss my girlfriend. That's one feeling I'm certain of. Missing people. Just socially, I mean, I feel good. Yeah, I feel good socially. I have good friends. People who have my back. I have their back. I have seen an endless amount of support and well wishes come my way from all sorts of people I know since I've had COVID. Yeah. I have really good friends, and I have a really, really good girlfriend too. Yeah. So I'm grateful for them is what I'm saying. And I've improved socially, made friends, and just, yeah, tomorrow I'll sit down at post-production and see if there are any gold nuggets from this, because if I'm being honest, the past 16 minutes, I don't remember a word that I said of anything. I kind of just let the words spill out, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess I'm going to find out tomorrow when I watch this back. So, it's safe to say I'm a little nervous.
This is gonna sound like a weird question, but why do you like me?
Well, you're my sister. And you do some fun stuff with me. You're a nice person. Yeah.
Did I have suspicion? I had concern. There was just a sadness. There was something wrong. It was in the midst of COVID. So everyone blamed it on that. Well, can't see his friends, can't go anywhere, can't do anything, but it was more than that. And she would try to talk to me, but yet it wasn't, we weren't communicating, and she was very sad.
But honestly, I didn't put a lot of the things together until after we had the discussion, and you know, Max told me, you know, how she felt inside, and then kind of thinking back on things, I thought, okay, that makes sense now.
What were your thoughts when you first found out?
Honestly, I was taken a little back. I wasn't expecting it. It happened to be on April 1st, so it was April Fool's Day. So I at first thought maybe, okay, this is kind of like a funny joke or something, but it wasn't, and I could tell that, you know, that it was very genuine and coming from Max's heart.
How did you feel when you first found out?
I felt like I didn't expect that to happen. I thought you would just stay normal where you are.
When I very first found out, emotional, afraid of what she'd been going through or what she is going to be going through. It was scary for me.
So currently, you know, it's a lot of work. It's both a lot of work for myself and for Max. You know, a lot of appointments, a lot of phone calls, a lot of prescriptions and picking up and whatnot. And it's definitely a change of lifestyle in a sense. You know, we've had to go shopping and do makeup and things that we haven't done in the past. But I think that things are going very well. I definitely see Max coming out of her shell, being able to express herself more, enjoying life more. Definitely enjoying life a lot more than in the past. In the past, it was always a very reserved person who didn't really want to be a part of things per se, felt uncomfortable a lot, where now I see more of a relaxed person who wants to be involved with things. And I think it's mainly just because Max is able to be Max and be herself. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we've gotten to where we are right now, because I think she's finally happy.
Just to see her blossom and to to see her happy and content in her own body and her own skin, you know it's right. You know everything's right. And it's good.
Ever since I was 5, I knew something didn't feel right. I never really liked the typical boy stuff. I wasn't really into sports or hunting or any of that kind of stuff. I never really felt comfortable going into the guy's bathroom, and I completely refused to ever go into a boy's locker room. I never wanted to look manly. I was why can't I look cute instead? I struggled for a while, trying to figure out what exactly the problem was. Then one day it just clicked for me. I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. After realizing that, everything suddenly made sense. I finally figured it out, and it felt so euphoric. Like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Funnily enough, the first people I told were my aunt and my uncle, when I probably should have told my mother first. I was surprised in how well they took it. I think that's what gave me the confidence to tell the rest of my family. What really pushed me to say something instead of keeping quiet was the thought that I could suppress it my whole life and be miserable, or I could accept it and be happy. Even if some people don't agree with me, and honestly, I don't really care if some people don't like me. I'm me, and that's what matters.
I first discovered I was a part of the LGBTQ community around 13, 14 years old. And that's when I originally thought I was bisexual. So I am gay, trans, and poly. So most recently I've been out for about 3-4 years. It really depends on what aspect of said community. So, me myself being trans, it feels like you're supposed to and not supposed to do certain things. Like, guys don't usually wear jewelry, so... And then if you're playing like a certain sport, like I play softball, which is technically a girl's sport, most people get confused. Me personally, I feel pretty safe being out to everybody around me. Especially my cheer team. They've been extremely supportive about it, even though they've only known for not even like a year and they're still welcoming. They treat me the same. They make it feel safe. Honestly, this has taken a couple tolls on my mental health, such as like some people not being exactly welcoming to the idea of the LGBTQ community and getting judged by most people when they first hear about it because they don't really understand what it is or why somebody would feel that way. I feel like this is truly me because I feel if I kept living my life as a girl, I'd be living a lie. Because that wasn't me. It didn't feel right. This does.
My name is Colby Perry. I am a 17-year-old video production student here at Stafford Technical Center. And here is my story.
Just yesterday morning, they let me know you were gone. Suzanne, the plans they made put an end to you.
So from a very young age, I was always emotional. For most of my life, I've always struggled with retaining information. I've always had a problem with like reading, writing, controlling what my body does. I used to have like really bad, I couldn't really control myself most of my life.
Well, COVID's been hard on everybody. Colby kind of has kept himself in his own space a lot. He tries to hang out in his room, play games, be on his phone. He kind of does not connect well with friends during all of this. We had enrolled him into a private school. At the private school, they saw that he had some delays and things, and we weren't really sure what that entailed, but we sought out some help from psychologists and doctors, and tons of people, unfortunately, trying to diagnose things that they weren't fully sure of.
They did some tests. They figured out I have a ADHD. They pushed for me to have medicine, but the medicine really affected me a lot. It would make me more aggravated, angry, all that stuff. They pushed for it, and my parents said, no, we're not going to do that to him. Sometimes I get stressed out very easily. I have really bad anxiety, ADHD.
Colby is a person who tends to deal with anxiety and is very critical of himself. He takes things very personally, even when they're not intended that way. But I think that as he's growing and sees his abilities more and people kind of come around and help build him up, he can see what he is capable of. Emotionally, I think that he does struggle with anxiety a lot, but he's a very happy, loving person. So I would say that he's doing pretty well. I think Stafford has been an incredible place for Colby. Attending Stafford has not only built up his confidence and helped him to see the things that he is capable of, it's really helped him branch out with things that he enjoys, or coming to know what he enjoys more, making some friends and new teachers. It's been a crazy thing to see him go off to Stafford, because he's always been a guy who is only comfortable with what he knows, and going out of this little box, he's really flourished and doing very well. So I'm so thankful for the opportunity for Stafford.
So this is my first year having Colby as a student. Last year he was in a different English class. But what I find this year about Colby is that when he arrived, he selected a front row seat, kind of off to the side, so that he was in a place where he was really able to focus on his work. He is the type of student who will ask for frequent check-ins. He wants to make sure that what he's doing is on task. And if an assignment wasn't the grade that he had hoped to achieve, he always asks if there's something he can do to resubmit it and raise the grade. So in my opinion, I think he's doing everything that he needs to do right now to be successful. Colby is doing an exceptional job in class right now. He currently has a 3.1. He is proficient in writing, reading, and the communication portion of the class. At Stafford this year, what I would really like to see Colby continue to work on is both his professional and technical skills. And I would also like him to continue to work on time management skills, as these are all things that will help further his career in the field of video production.
During COVID, Colby shined. He stepped up to the plate, even when there were restrictions on taking equipment out, and transportation and even coming to school, Colby was always one of the students who I could rely on to show up and to do the best that he could under some pretty interesting circumstances.
Whatever comes our way, whatever battle we have raging inside of us, we always have a choice. It's the choices that make us who we are, and we can always choose to do what's right.
Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around.
All right then. Hello, my name is Patty Jacob. I live in Jeffersonville, Vermont. I still think I'm just a regular person. I'm really nobody special. Hello, we are in my office where I keep my player piano, my regular Yamaha keyboard, all of my office supplies, and over there off camera are many printers and computers and all manner of office stuff. So it's a little cluttery, but this is where I do my work. I was born in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and I was born in 1955, so the middle of the 20th century, and I'm solidly mid-century. It was just very suburban. My city was about 30,000 people, and there were 300 people in my graduating class, so 1,200 people in my high school. I had one friend in particular that we were close from kindergarten all the way through school. We did many things together. In 3rd grade for our class Christmas party, she brought her accordion and I had a little tabletop piano, and we entertained our 3rd grade class by playing Christmas carols during the party. And it seemed normal at the time, but looking back, like, who does that in 3rd grade? We formed a youth choir, and no grown-ups, just us running this choir, and we sang all over town. There were clubs everywhere, dealing with people and the process of this is dependent on that, and if there's a problem in this department, it's going to affect things down the line. It was really a great experience of learning how to deal with a lot of different kinds of people. Back in the day, it was important to take piano. I didn't think I was very good, and I really didn't like it all that much. I've never been one who enjoys sitting down to practice. And it never occurred to me to be a music teacher, probably until I was a junior or senior in high school. And we went in the summer, again, this friend and I, we went to a summer church camp, and there was a boy there from another town. He was a couple years older than us, and he played the piano for these chapel services. And I think that was a moment where I thought, well, I could do that. I can't even tell you his name or where he ended up, but just that memory of that person stayed with me. And I felt like there was a point when I was getting my degree in my music, and there was my mother and my grandmother saying, "See, I told you so." Again, here I am, many decades later as a church musician and also a school musician, and still doing it. Say when.
When?
Okay, so this is my glorious office space. Oh, so this is a 1954 Willys Jeep, and it's surrounded by my nephew's four-wheeler, so pay no attention to that. This is Mount Mansfield. It's the highest peak in Vermont, and it's kind of the reason we picked this house, because we stood in this very driveway and looked over there and said, whoa. To this side we have the things that need to be shredded, and above that a printer, and this printer talks to my phone, so that's why that one's here. Say something, Teddy. Say something to the audience. He's usually quite a talker. This is the old Army Jeeps in the style that I drove when I was a young soldier in the 80s. And you can get a nice view of the trails, the Sterling Mountain trails, and kind of behind the pine tree in the fog is Madonna 1. One of the Jacob family traits is that we have things in piles, and we know exactly what is in which pile, so no one should ever touch them or we'd be totally confused. He'll be back in 5 minutes. It runs pretty good, but you don't want to drive it too far. It's more of a cream puff kind of vehicle, drive it around the yard, to the ice cream stand on Sundays and things like that. And also in that direction is my neighbor's maple sugaring operation and sugar bush, and just about the beginning of October, it's pretty spectacular foliage-wise around here. Well, yes, my maiden name is Gerard. I don't really know the origin of it other than it's Scottish and English, and there are also French Gerards, but I know that my grandfather was very adamant that we were not French. Here comes His Majesty. He told me what he thought it meant, but I can't really mention it here on tape.
I think that says enough about it.
So this is what we in the military always call the I love me wall, which is where you make one wall with all your awards and your important stuff that you've done in your career. So what we have here is, this is called a shadow box, and in it I have my flag that I was given when I retired, and all of my military awards, medals, awards in order. And of course my 3 name tags, my maiden name of Gerard and my first husband's name, Eisenman, and my present and second husband's name of Jacob. And these are staff of the Ethan Allen Firing Range. And if you look closely, you will see that little blonde girl in the corner, that one was me. Yeah, basic training is quite a trip. And if you just hold yourself together, you can get through it, and it's really quite an experience. Here, these are some outtakes, kind of cutouts from the book that I put together. It was a yearbook of Operation Desert Storm, and I kind of put this together as a memoir. And this big engineer company here gave me this signed picture of them to thank me for doing it for them. This is one of the famous expressions that blurted out of my mouth for no reason. My co-workers thought it was the most hilarious thing, and they had that plaque made for me. My dear friends in the Army Band made this lovely quilt, little reminder of some of the people that I served with and some of the cool things that we did. End of discussion. I came in the fall of 1979. While I was working in manufacturing, because I didn't get a job right out of college, another woman in my factory had gone to tractor trailer school. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting and fun, and left my job and went to tractor trailer school for a couple months. And I answered an ad for the Lamoille South Supervisory Union in Morrisville, Vermont, to be the band teacher grades 4 through 12 at Morristown Elementary and People's Academy. So I sent in my resume, found my way to Lamoille County, and drove up here. Before GPS, I actually had to use a map. And honestly, I looked like a 12-year-old then. Like, I was that teacher that was mistaken for a student in the halls. Got my Class 1 driver's license on a tractor-trailer truck down in Massachusetts. So that was on my resume. I honestly still to this day think it made the difference in why did they pick me. And I really think the principal felt, well, there must be something more to this young woman than meets the eye if she's done that. Now, when I came to People's Academy, the kids coming to me and saying, we have no one to direct our musical, would you please direct a musical for us? I was told that Bye Bye Birdie was an easy one to do for a first musical. You know, little did I know. That was my first show that I directed. Again, the students came to me and said, hey, there's a theater over in Hyde Park. We're going to be doing The Music Man this summer. Why don't you come over and audition with us? So I went over and I auditioned for The Music Man, and I know I sang absolutely terribly, but I was cast anyway, maybe because they knew I was the band teacher. I signed my name on the wall. And also when I was teaching at People's Academy, my first summer, I was at basic training. Military in the summer, you just don't have time. But I did end up on the board of Lamoille County Players, so I served on the board and helped out here and there. Like in the fall, I could do props for a play, but summer was almost out of the question for me. I took over the Sound of Music that we had been putting on for many, many years every fall. I've directed the entire production 7 different times, conducted over 100 performances of it. Eventually, certainly more after I retired in 2008, I began to direct summer musicals because I had directed big musicals. I was used to it. I'm good with large mobs of people. And, you know, sometimes it comes down to nobody else wants to do it. So that has been my open door for so many things in my life, is no one else would do it. So I just did. You know, it's really just an honor to have ended up where I do, to still be playing music. Oh, you're just carrying that gift of music forward.
When Gavin first came to visit the program here at Stafford Technical Center, I was the teacher and I was sitting there, and his father came in and said everything for him.
I think that Gavin is just getting started. I think that there's so much potential to grow.
He's also very introverted, struggled with like stuttering and hard to get words out.
My name is Gavin Owens, and I am the owner and creative director of Go Studios LLC, which is basically just a freelance video production company where people hire us to make commercials, make advertisements for their business, nonprofit, and things like that. So we started officially, we officially launched our business, got it registered in September of 2020. So. Little under 2 years, about 1.5 years right now, and it's been a really cool ride and really cool journey thus far.
I began to walk with Gavin to show him what it looked like to license your business in the state of Vermont. I helped him get his business off the ground by helping him go through the process to get legal as an LLC.
So, as my job, I work with clients, everything from talking to them about what they want for the video, scheduling that. Setting that up, hearing their ideas, talking to them about what we can offer them, and then also from that end all the way to production, videoing, filming the video, and also editing. So I do a little bit of it all. Right now I'm a one-man band, but yeah, that's what I do pretty much when I work with a client. Yeah, some of my clients are the library here in Rutland, Rutland Mental Health, Sensible Shoe, Rutland City Police Department, Vermont State Police. I've worked with people like Killington Ski Resort. Have the opportunity to work with some pretty cool people in a very short amount of time that I've been doing business here in Rutland. When I was younger, I always, whenever someone would say the famous, like, what do you want to do when you grow up, phrase, I would always say I wanted to be an artist. And in my, 7 or 8 year old mind, that meant drawing and painting. I didn't really know a lot about video, but video and photography is a form of art.
Got a personality like none other. He is the life of the room, but he's also very introverted, struggled with like stuttering and hard to get words out. And I remember him, how we have to tell him like, slow down, son, breathe a minute, because he just couldn't get his little words out. Man, I think about how he was always creative, thinking, drawing, designing things. He would show us pictures he's drawing. He always was just interested in creative things, but on the same token, I remember many days my wife and I thinking he's never going to want to get out of the house. He's never going to want to be away from our coattails. He is just this awkward kid. And I think I see him today as he's stepped into manhood and as a young business owner and as an entrepreneur and a bold leader in our church.
When Gavin first came to visit the program here at Stafford Technical Center, I was the teacher and I was sitting there, and his father came in and said everything for him. And I was a little concerned because he was walking around looking at everything but not asking me any questions. And his dad did all the talking for him. So I was wondering what he was thinking, what was going through his head, and if he was a right fit for the program or not. But the nature of the video program is one in that you have to go out and you have to work with clients and you have to film video that you're normally not comfortable filming. You have to conduct interviews that you're normally not comfortable conducting. And I think he grew out of that feeling of being uncomfortable. A lot of people have said to me in my life that you grow when you fail. And I think that Gavin is a good example of knowing that he was going to either fail and grow or not grow at all, staying in his little comfort zone of silence.
You know, Miss K did a really good job of putting me in uncomfortable situations on purpose, not to like scare me or anything like that, but to grow me. And she knew that in order for me to survive in the real world and the adult world, which I am in now, I would have to learn how to talk to people. And so she would kind of introduce me to someone and then put me in that situation, and then she would walk away and let me figure out how to handle it. And at the time, even though I may not have been really thankful for it at the time, but now I'm very thankful for it because it grew me. It taught me how to work with people, how to talk to people that I don't know, maybe for the first time. And then, you know, alongside that, you know, another thing that really helps is just, you know, practicing that, you know. Even still sometimes today, I'm by nature an introvert, so sometimes it's really hard for me to walk up to someone or start a conversation with someone, but I find the more that I practice that, the more that I just force myself into that, the easier it gets each time I do it. So that's probably the two biggest things that have helped me.
I've been hiking in Vermont for as long as I can remember. My family and I would go to local mountains, spend the day walking and telling stories to distract me and my sister from the long hike. At first I didn't like hiking. It was tiring and took too long. But as I got older, I saw how incredible an experience being in the outdoors can be. There's something special about Vermont hiking. The rolling hills and mountains covered in trees is comforting after a long hike up. As I got older, my family traveled and hiked in all sorts of places. We spent some time in India, and the landscapes we hiked were so huge and dramatic it was surreal. In Wyoming, they're harsh and rocky, showing a more awe-inspiring beauty. Despite seeing all of these places, the landscape of Vermont is still the most inviting to me. That comforting feeling of seeing the green hills roll into the distance is hard to match. My love of hiking and being in the mountains led me to take a NOLS course in Wyoming, which built my confidence and completely changed my perspective on hiking and trekking. It also led me to go on a 9-day section of the Vermont Long Trail, which showed me how I am capable of doing things on my own. Hiking and being in the outdoors has shaped the person I am today, and I'm glad it has.
This is a road. And this used to be the barn. Still is. a shadow of what it once was. This road was used to get to the upper pastures. This is what it looks like now. Old and rusted. Not much left. Not much here. But I still come to visit. Brings back a lot of sad memories. Not always, but now they are. Of the people that used to be here. Of the things it used to mean. It's frustrating. But that's not the only thing I've found here. I found hope. And a future. Outside of myself. And the push to keep going forward. Not necessarily within myself, but within the people around me. So I no longer look at this as an old sad shell of what it used to be. I see the damage, and I see the path to the light. I see the sorrow and sadness and loss. But I also see the new beginning, a new story to tell.
No way! No way! No way! No way! Oh, oh, oh my gosh. I love you, man. I love you.
And that just a warm embrace from someone you care about can make a whole world of difference. And it's not just what we see in each other. It's how we can help each other. Thanks to the people around me, I found the strength to keep going. Thanks to this farm that once reminded me of pain and loss, now reminds me that I'm never alone, and I always have a home. In the small town of Barrie, in the small state of Vermont.
I'm Olivia. I got Charlie March last year, 2021, when I got my license. I got it the first week. Like, I got it on the perfect date because I got a job the same week I got my car. Charlie is a Jeep Liberty 2005. I know. My teacher at U32 calls me a Jeep girl, even though it's a Jeep Liberty. you know, it's okay. Charlie has broke down before completely on me. Like, I was going on a hill in Williamstown and Charlie just like completely was like, peace out, I'm done. Lost power of steering, no brakes, no gas, but the car was still on. So I had to like coast it down a hill into someone's driveway halfway in the road. And then I just got my car back like a month ago because my dad drove it and didn't like the way it steers. Because when you steer in Charlie, usually you steer like straight like this. Charlie, you have to hold it like this. There's something wrong with the alignment. But we also brought it to a different person before we brought it to this person, and they're like, if your daughter gets in a car crash, her car will fall apart. But you know what? It's whatever, it's fine. And that's when I got my car, so I've almost had Charlie for a year. And Charlie's broken down on me. I've had a lot of problems with Charlie, but I still love Charlie. Oh, it's break time, but I love Charlie. Okay, since it's break time, I don't know if I want to just sit here because there's a lot of people. But yeah, Charlie, gotta love it.
Hi, my name is Dick Muller. I'm a leather craftsman, and I've been working with leather pretty much my whole life. I started in 1964 as a 17-and-a-half-year-old guy, and everyone usually asks how I got started. I began because a girl I was going out with had a beautiful pair of sandals, and they cost a lot of money. They were handmade in Cambridge at the time. And I couldn't afford them. They were $25 for a pair of sandals, and which today might be three. I mean, most sandal makers now are $300. So I took hers apart and figured out how to make them. Went to a cobbler's shop and bought a bunch of sole leather and fake leather strapping and nails and glue, and made a pair. And they were not very nice, but I wore them because I was proud. And then a friend wanted a pair, and so I made him a pair. And then I figured out I could make leather accessories. So I was making leather earrings and bracelets and headbands, barrettes, leather rings even. And then I started making some belts. I found some big buckles in New York City that were great for the hippie scene, and began to make stuff like that. And I went to a drugstore and to see if they would buy some of this stuff, and they did, and they put it in, and they were selling pretty well. So I had my mother and father and a couple of my brothers and sisters working in the cellar with me, helping to make this stuff, to cut it out and finish the edges and paint it and all of that. And then things were going along pretty well, and I wanted to start a store, a sandal shop in Amherst, Mass. And my father lent me $500, which was a sizable amount of money, but I was able to buy a bunch of tools because I had very, very rudimentary tools. Even after spending the $500, I didn't have fancy tools, but I was able to rent a store. It was actually a coal bin in an alley within an alley in Amherst, Mass. And it had coal in it and an old boiler. and the landlord said I could have free rent for 3 months if I cleaned it out and then made it into the store. So I did it. And things went really well, and I was able to pay my father back. And by that time I was making much better sandals. They weren't great, but they were much better and continued to get better. And I had found a lot of nice buckles for belts, and I began to make handbags. Eventually I made handbags, belts, wallets. I was making leather hats and capes and vests, and at one point I hired some people to come in, a couple women to come in and help make skirts and leather pants. So we had quite a business going for a while, and I had 4 or 5 people working for us. And when I say us, Diane and I, my wife Diane, we got married. I guess it was a couple of years after I'd opened the store, and she worked in the store with me as well, and has continued all our lives to work in the business in some capacity or another. So we went on like that for quite a while. Things were going well, but I was getting bored with working with the public every day and all the problems that come with that. And I decided to go into the wholesale business. So I started doing craft fairs, and at a craft fair, the big craft fairs, there was one called the American Crafts Council Fair in Rhinebeck, New York. Buyers from all over the country that had small galleries and shops would come to buy our goods. And in a couple hours, I would write enough business that would last me 6 months or more. And then those people would reorder. So that took off, and we worked really hard at that for a number of years, but we were never making very much money. In the meantime, while that was going on, we had goats and pigs and chickens and sheep and a cow, and we were making hay and growing all of our own food as well. So it was a lot of work and not very financially rewarding. But we struggled through that for quite a while, and then so we continued the craft fairs for quite a while. I think we did them up until wholesale until about 1990, and then we quit wholesale and we started selling directly to the public. And we developed a really nice clientele of people in New York, Chicago, Boston, Baltimore, Maryland, and people from the suburbs of all those areas came in to buy work from us. And they became very, very steady customers. Some of them I had met at craft fairs as early as the 70s as retail purchasers. So they would continue to come and support us, and eventually their kids started buying from us too. So we had quite a nice little business going on. Never really a great financial business, but a great lifestyle. And we raised 2 nice daughters and had a nice farm. It was great. And then in the 90s, we started doing some work for designers in New York City. And we were making samples for them for the runway, samples for their customers to see, and sometimes we would do light production. So we worked for some pretty important designers in the city, making very, very high-end things. Primarily in around belts that, you know, movie people and singers and actors and people like that would buy. So that was all great, and we worked really well at that. Then COVID came along. Things had begun to quiet down with the designers a little bit because they were all having financial difficulties in New York. And then COVID came, and everything got very quiet. And then we moved up to Vermont part-time from Massachusetts, is where Diane and I live part-time now because we're here and there, to take care of my daughter Melissa's family during COVID. And we decided we love it, we're coming, we're staying, we bought a house 2 houses away, and I am now retired and loving it and love to be around the family.
We all know Montpelier, the state capital, the home of many coffee shops, stores, and more. But do we really know Montpelier? Sure, we know the best and the cheapest restaurants, but what about the people, the strangers who pass on the street? In my opinion, it's the people that make the place, which is why I chose to start this project, interviewing strangers on their memories and experiences, to put names to the faces and to the story of this town.
I have no idea who's going to see this or hear this, but that's okay too. I'm John. I live here in Montpelier. I'm a native Vermonter, all of 68 years young. Been in the military, seen the world, came back, found out there's no better place in the world than Vermont. Pretty happy here, really. Born here, lived here, die here. Happy way to think about it in a way. Couldn't be a better place in the world. But my memories here of Montpelier go back to about 1958 or 9. In front of where the now Shaw Supermarket is was a 70-foot high grain elevator with a very narrow steel bridge going across the river. And we had a couple of businesses here, of course, on Main Street that are no longer here, including Woolworths and I can't remember the other one, but if you didn't have much money, you could go in there and get a cup of hot water and put ketchup in it and make soup, or get a hot dog for $0.25. So it was a pretty good deal. But Montpelier also used to have a tiny diner just past the entrance of where Julio's is now, called the Miss Montpelier Diner, which was a traditional diner car of its era. I wish it was there. You could get coffee in there for a dime, and every little booth had its own jukebox. And if you were good and you maybe saved $1 for the whole month, you could go in there and entertain yourself for a while.
Well, we've been out here for 30 years. Every Friday, or most Fridays, from noon to 1. And basically, we each have our own point of view, but we're here to help create peace in the world. It was the invasion of Kuwait.
Can you talk a little bit about how that was to get started and how you guys got going?
There was a line of people from that corner to this corner.
Really?
Yeah. So not so many anymore, but I find it useful to be out here every Friday just to remind myself that peace is possible and that we need to connect with other people who believe that too. You wanna chime in?
No, I'm not prepared for that. You can go ahead.
Well, I can tell you one of my happiest memories was right here watching a mother with 2 little kids skipping down the sidewalk. And our friend who used to be here all the time, who was in his 90s, said, "That's the way human beings really are."
How often do you remember your dreams? Never? Rarely? Sometimes? I remember most of mine. It's why I love to sleep so much. Because my dreams are not simply dreams. They are worlds, and they are lives. But my time is cut short, and I'm back in this reality. Yet these worlds never leave me. They are a part of me. I wish I could share these worlds, but they never leave my head. I imagine hooking my mind to a projector, sharing these large worlds with others. These are no longer just dreams.
My earliest memory of it was when I was around 12. I was getting ready for school, and in the rush, I noticed the TV was making some weird noises, but I didn't think much of it. On the ride to school, I noticed it again. It was almost drowned out by the car, but it was unmistakable. I asked Mom if she heard anything weird, and she just gave me a look, so I dropped it. That's usually what happens when I mention it to anyone. The noise hasn't really gone away since then. It's always there, usually barely noticeable. Music helps, but only for a little while, and loud music just makes it worse. Loud anything makes it worse, actually. It swells to match the volume of my surroundings, ensuring that I'm never free. It can get so loud that the room shakes and my ears ring and I can't think. There's a hammer pounding at my skull and people stare like children poking roadkill with a stick out of morbid curiosity. Sometimes it gets so quiet that all I can hear is a faint scraping, like something is trying to get out. Sometimes I get curious. Sometimes my skin moves on its own. I wake up in the middle of the night a lot. And when I wake up, my ears are bleeding, and my nightmares, still kicking at the fringes of my mind, dig their claws into my head and wait for sunrise. I can't fall back asleep, and for the rest of the night, I am plagued with visions of ants crawling out of my chest. Most of my internal dialogue revolves around it. Why it's there, how to get rid of it. Sometimes I trick myself into believing that I did something wrong in life. I was too mean or too distant. Maybe I'm infected. It could be my moldy shower head or asbestos from the hole in my wall. Or it could be someone else's fault entirely. Maybe my dad hit me when I was a child, or maybe I saw someone die. Maybe then, when I tell people about what's happening to me, they won't roll their eyes. They might listen to me. They might fix me. But, of course, none of those things are true. I was born broken, and I will die broken.
When did you know that you were in love with Mom? Well, the first time I met her, really. It was this instant feeling. One of those feelings that's so unexpected and rare, but always seems to happen at the right time.
I've never met anyone like that.
Well, that's good. You don't have to go through the pain of losing them.
Mason, how are you feeling today? Are you sad, angry, nervous?
Dr. Shelby.
No, please, call me James.
I know that I'm supposed to be sad and angry and depressed. But honestly, I just feel nothing. 6 months and I haven't cried. Felt like a stranger at my own father's funeral. Everybody sobbing and consoling each other, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't give them anything. I couldn't show anything. couldn't even give my father a single tear at his own funeral.
Do you mind if I try something? All I need from you is just relax, okay? Let your mind wander. Take a deep breath in and out. How do you feel?
I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see
Mason.
that. No.
What did you see? This is important.
Don't take me back there. I don't. Why would you show me that?
Because I care.
You don't care. You don't care. You don't care. So you don't care. You care. But I just want to leave. This is all you really care about. So can I leave?
No.
Can I go?
Are you back? Huh? Relax. Why don't you tell me how he died?
You don't get to ask that.
Why not?
You don't deserve to know that.
Why not? Was it your fault?
Don't say that.
No?
Don't say that. I deserve it.
Deserve what?
Having this happen to me. Feeling like I've been engulfed by my own loneliness. It's difficult. Putting on a fake smile for people you know don't care. I hate it. But I deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do deserve it. Right? Right? You deserve the pain. You deserve feeling this way. Do you deserve me hitting you? Yeah? Do you deserve this? Yeah?
Hit me again. I deserve it. I deserve it. Hit me again.
Don't.
Hit me again. Hit me again.
Stop.
I deserve it. Hit me again. Hit me again. Stop. I deserve it.
Welcome back. How do you feel?
I don't want to be here. I wasn't finished there. I didn't want to leave there. Can you just do your freaky neck thing and just put me back there? Because I need to be back there.
You've run out of time for today. We'll resume next week.
I don't want to feel what I feel here anymore. I don't feel it there. I just feel quiet and just peace. And I need that. So I just, please, I just need you to be back. Please.
Mason, listen. You don't want to go back there. Trust me. Hold the memories that you have. Don't try to force new ones.
I can't take your word for it. I need to see it.
Okay. Mason, I'm sorry. Why there? How do you feel? Actually, never mind.
Loss, rejection, isolation, they all hurt. They all hurt so much. So I create a fantasy. One that only dreams and aspirations exist. No pain.
Sounds nice.
It is. It really is, except I can't reside there. Only visit from time to time when absolutely needed. But I have been there too long. But reality hurts. It hurts. It has pain and suffering and a lot of sadness. But reality also has hope that one day I might be happy again. That slight glimmer of a possibility is worth anything I would have to endure.
Have you chosen which space to be in?
Isn't it peaceful? The sound of birds chirping, with the breeze in the air. It's perfect.
never get tired of this view. It's so beautiful, and you'd never know we're just a mile from downtown Hanover.
Balch Hill has long been a special place in this community. Even before the 10 acres at the summit was protected by the Hanover Conservancy in 1970, this is a place that people came to go blueberry picking, to enjoy the views of Killington and Mount Ascutney and Baker Tower down here below. The landscape was quite a bit more open at the time. It was pastures, meadows, small orchard, but people loved it. And this is even where the Dartmouth ski team practiced skiing in the 1920s.
When we moved to Hanover in 2004, we were delighted to find this marvelous natural area practically in our backyard.
When we learned how and why this area was protected, we both became involved in the Conservancy and have been active with them ever since.
Not long after the Conservancy acquired the 10-acre summit, a developer proposed constructing more than 100 condominiums on the land immediately surrounding it. When the town rejected that, they proposed 49 homes. That's when folks came together to protect the rest of this special place. The Hanover Conservancy, in partnership with the town and many, many neighbors, led a fundraising campaign to purchase the land for conservation, creating the Balch Hill Natural Area. Our story begins at town meeting in 1961, when Hanover adopted its first zoning ordinance to guide responsible growth. The new ordinance was based on a consultant's report that included a proposed greenbelt of undeveloped land around the downtown. However, town officials at the time chose not to include this part in the warrant articles. That very day, 5 concerned citizens, Bob Norman, Carolyn Tenney, George Wrightson, Ted Hunter, and Gene Hennessy, met to see what could be done to correct this omission. They believed protecting a greenbelt was critically important. The next year, they were back at town meeting with a petition to add a new type of zone, nature preserve, which won strong approval by voters. It was this group of inspired, determined citizens that formed the private, nonprofit membership organization called the Hanover Conservation Council. Over the last 60 years, the Hanover Conservancy, as we are now known, has helped protect nearly 2,700 acres. This includes 453 acres all over town that we own and manage, plus 555 acres protected by our conservation easements or deed restrictions. With the Conservancy's help, another 1,664 acres have been acquired by the town and other partners for conservation purposes.
Here we are at Lower Slade Brook, which is named in honor of Jim and Evelyn Hornig, who recognized the importance of conserving this really beautiful natural area in Hanover. Jim was our board president for the Hanover Conservancy and served on the town's planning board, and also was a professor of environmental studies at Dartmouth College. We love it at Slade Brook. We love the trails. It's one of the closest ones to our home, and we come all the time. I love how the trail is so accessible, and I love seeing it over the seasons. Or in the summer, we go to Slade Brook to enjoy the water. As soon as you get in the shade, you can feel it cool down, and it's a really nice break from the summer heat.
This is Mink Brook. It's Hanover's largest stream. Its watershed reaches from its headwaters on Moose Mountain to its mouth at the Connecticut River. Some remember how polluted the lower reaches of this brook and the Connecticut River had become by the 1950s and 60s. It wasn't until the Clean Water Act of 1972 and the construction of the sewer line through here under the Quinn Trail that the brook began to recover. Even more, it's been a deeply important place for indigenous peoples for thousands of years and continues to be so. The Conservancy recognizes and honors the Abenaki as the traditional stewards of this landscape, and we strive to respect and protect our conserved lands and waters here in a way that reflects that understanding.
Conserving land comes with the responsibility of watching over these lands forever. We use land trust best practices to prepare management plans and keep them up to date. We monitor boundaries, maintain trails and signs, and where needed, remove invasive species and restore native vegetation. This is a big task and requires a dedicated stewardship fund and a core group of awesome volunteers.
Caring for our conserved land is a great way to engage the community and have local volunteers join us in our efforts. And we're very lucky here in Hanover that we have a lot of volunteers. They do such things as lay out trails, build trails, monitor trails, maintain trails, remove invasive species, as Marilla mentioned, and also build bridges and do whatever else comes along. We're very lucky to have their help.
With major trail projects and after storm cleanups, we partner with the Upper Valley Trails Alliance and rely on their expertise to help out.
Our founders knew that getting people out on the land to learn about Hanover's natural resources would go hand in hand with efforts to conserve them. They began offering guided hikes and bird walks, and that program has continued and grown over the decades. Now, hundreds of participants of all ages get outdoors and explore with us every year. My involvement and introduction into the Hanover Conservancy began when I brought my children on one of those trips. I then became a member and a volunteer, and later went on to lead lots of field trips and served on the board for 9 years. As a wildlife biologist, being involved and supporting a local conservation group like the Hanover Conservancy was a real meaningful way for me to give back to the community.
I've been involved with the Hanover Conservancy for 20 years and have led more than 50 trips. Particularly popular are our winter snowshoe hikes, and people really like our annual Moonlight snowshoe hike on Slade Brook, on the trails around Slade Brook in rural Hanover. Natural and cultural history are also included into our programs, telling the story of Hanover's past and how settlements shaped the landscape and resources we have today.
Teamwork has always been the best way to get conservation done. And our favorite partner from the time we began was the town of Hanover. Over the years, we've worked to help protect a number of pieces of land in town with the goal of having it become town property. That was the case with the Tansy Tract back in 1966, and fast forward all the way to today here at the Mink Brook Community Forest on Greensboro Road.
And you know, as the small town of Hanover, we don't have a lot of resources to work on land conservation, acquisition, land planning projects the way larger communities do. This is a town that relies on really important partners in many facets of what we do. And when it comes to land conservation, recreation land planning, it's the Hanover Conservancy. And the Mink Brook Community Forest property, which is a beautiful piece of property, in particular as an example of how valuable this partnership is, because Adair and I, together with J.T. Horn from the Trust for Public Land, have been working on this project for a decade. So without you all, we wouldn't have all the wonderful spots that we have, and we're so grateful and willing to step up to say, we need partners in these projects, and the Conservancy is that partner.
The climate crisis is affecting Hanover now, and it's going to take all of us to confront it. The Hanover Conservancy is helping by conserving stream corridors and wetlands to protect against flooding from heavy storms, protecting cooler, higher elevation habitat, and linking with other protected lands to guarantee room for wildlife to move. Good examples are our Moose Mountain lands, the Mayor Niles Forest, the Britton Forest, and our purchase of a conservation easement on the 313-acre Shumway Forest along the spine of Moose Mountain. We also protect places important for other reasons: public drinking water supplies, historic landscapes, beautiful views, and trails. Our new strategic plan describes our promise to protect new important lands, the lands and trails already in our care, and our community's long-held conservation ethic. That's a big job, but I think our community deserves it.
Thank you, Hanover Conservancy, for protecting habitat for wildlife,
for your promise to protect our land, trails, and community,
for caring about the health of our community,
for places that I can connect with nature,
for clean brooks and vernal pools, for beautiful trails to explore.
And thank you to all of our members who support our work and make conservation in Hanover possible. Thank you.
Originally a fabrication building for the Vermont Marble Company, and the building itself is probably 8 or 9 different buildings that were built over time. The original use as a museum in some sense started in 1933 or so, with the Vermont Marble Company using it as a showroom for visitors, architects, etc. Preservation Trust entered into agreement to acquire the collection around 2014 and set up the Vermont Marble Museum as a nonprofit board and a nonprofit organization on its own. So it's been since 2016 since it's been operated as a nonprofit museum.
One of the biggest ones, I believe, would be the Industrial Revolution, which allowed, the moving, the manipulation, the digging up, the transporting, the milling of incredibly large items like stone that a human person wouldn't be able to do themselves. They wouldn't be able to do it with horse or oxen. So having the raw materials here in the form of a quarry in this limestone that's in our Vermont mountains, and then having the Industrial Revolution, which brought the railroads right probably 12 feet from where I sit right here, just the other side of that wall, the railroad for the transporting of goods and of the product, and the need, the larger buildings, to be able to create a market for that marble. I believe it was one of the Proctors. I don't know if it was Redfield Proctor or Mortimer Proctor. One was the father, one was the son. You know what? I think it was Redfield Proctor.
I think one of the things, having mentioned that the Hems were in the wholesale business, one of the things that the Hems had going for them is that they had a deep inventory of stuff that they were selling wholesale, and so their prices for the gift shop were pretty good, and they had a stable business model that had multiple things, not just visitors. So certainly, as the museum had to shut down, so at the end of 2019, things were a little tight financially, and there was a decision to really work on strategic planning for how to upgrade the exhibits. Tours are changing, not as many bus tours these days, all of that sort of. So begin to rethink the museum. And then with pandemic, it became really clear that bus tours and other things just weren't going to be happening at all, and that opening at all in 2020 would risk using what capital was available and losing it. So the decision was made to stay closed and to work on thinking about that strategic plan and revisions and updates during the pandemic. So that's where we are. So it's been closed since the normal seasonal shutdown in October of 2019. That included the gift shop because with nobody there to do fulfillment, mail order doesn't work. So the it's one of the only true company towns in Vermont. Proctor itself was created from 4 different communities that land got aggregated into creating the new municipality. And so the fact that the museum is there in that original building where all of the Proctor workers showed up is really cool. It's very unique that you have the exhibits co-located with where people did the work. And the fact that there were people from all over the world in Little Proctor, it's just amazing. And when you think about what the Vermont Marble Company did out of Proctor, just extraordinary list of buildings and monuments and graves, a huge impact all over the world. So that whole piece, sort of comes to life there on site in a way that it wouldn't anywhere else. The other pieces that I think are important is that there are multiple storylines around marble in Vermont. There's the ancient storyline of the geology and what created the rock that's been so important over time. There's the immigrant community story. There's the company town and the history of the business. There's the craft of marble for architecture, and there's the art of marble for sculpture. So you've got all of these different storylines that come together in one place.
A very interesting fact, I think, is that at one point, this building, the business that took place in this building, from what I understand, the company employed 2,000 people, which is more people than the town of Proctor currently has for a population. We have about 1,600 or 1,700. But at one point I hear that a little patch of grass between the building and the railroad supplied a ramp for a sidewalk. And at one point when the whistle blew, enough people walked up that grassy path to either go home for lunch at noontime or go home at the end of the day. It was supposedly the most traveled sidewalk in the state of Vermont at one point. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier that is at Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. The stone for that might have come from Tennessee, somewhere a little more west. But I believe there's a photograph of that Tomb of the Unknown Soldier being shipped by railroad to Washington, D.C. And that was setting on this loading dock, which is where we sit right now.
Building itself, the goal of the Preservation Trust is to have a redevelopment of the building as a historic asset for continuous use. So the Preservation Trust of Vermont works in historic preservation, but through the lens of adaptive reuse of historic assets as true community assets, right? So we expect the building will continue to have a really strong life with light industrial on the ground floor and the museum upstairs. We'll probably see a lot more online activities for the museum, delivering exhibits, content, lectures digitally, not just on site. Things have changed so much We'll probably see a little physical contraction of the museum. It took the whole second floor. Things were kind of spread out, so I expect when it reopens, things will look and feel a little bit different. But of course, the key features, the Hall of Presidents, the exhibit of all the marble slabs from all over the world, and what marble is, so looks physically so different from so many places. That'll still be there. Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, that wonderful lobby. But I think it's time, for the museum to go from what it was a gift shop with exhibits, because it was attached to a commercial enterprise, and really become primarily a education resource in the future. And I think that's a transition that takes 10 years or so, and that we're in the middle of.
It's chaos. It's chaos.
It's chaos.
It's chaos.
I think during 2020, there was a lot of mystery, and the stress every day of trying to get through the day was really hard.
Teaching online was very difficult because it was hard to ensure that you were connecting with your students and that they were staying on track.
I think it's been more difficult in that we've had to very quickly change structures, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. We had to change the way we teach, we had to change the way we run the school, we had to implement certain things that were difficult. They were new and different for us. So there was a lot of kind of pivoting and changing the way we do things. So that part was difficult.
It's been a lot of work changing how we deliver instruction, how we structure lesson plans and all that, and not really knowing students on a personal level like I'm used to knowing. That was hard to kind of, it was like teaching into a vacuum some days.
Back in 2020, we had no idea what we were doing. And when we went remote, everybody had to learn this stuff. The kids had to learn how Google Classroom worked. What made it most difficult then was everything was brand new.
The students are really suffering. The students have a really difficult time dealing with COVID. Although they've been superheroes, and I think just taking it all in stride, wearing masks, and for the most part following rules and getting up every day and showing up, they're really stressed. And eventually that turns to health problems. So if it's not a mental health problem, it turns to a physical health problem, to also having COVID, and that's really stressful for kids too. It's been a really hard, really difficult past 2 years.
It's hard. It's very hard. It's very challenging. I've been a teacher for 10 years, so I was a teacher for 7 years before COVID started interrupting things, and these have been the 2.5 most challenging years of my career. It's hard to connect with students. Student absenteeism is up quite a bit. And you're limited to what you can do based on the students in the room. And when we were online schooling, there were certain strategies and techniques you can't use as a teacher. So teaching in these times, you feel sometimes like you have one hand tied behind your back.
I think it's harder doing school remotely, especially for our teachers. It's been really difficult. They've had to learn a brand new way of teaching. They all learned how to teach in person. They all learned how to, stand in front of a class. But that's been a new learning for them. I think especially during hybrid times, that was very, very hard, in that they were trying to reach students that were in front of them and reach students that were on camera. So that kind of balancing act was really difficult for them. So I think teaching and learning has been really difficult. I've also heard a lot of students who they've come back to school and they say now that time when they were home was a very, very hard way for them to learn, and it was really difficult for them to actually learn things that way. So it kind of put them behind a little bit for this year.
We're learning new things all the time about how to teach students, things that we never would have had the opportunity to know before.
We have learned a lot about this disease, and we realize that masks and shots can prevent spread, and our measures that first year were pretty successful, and I think we did overkill that first year to try to keep people safe. And now we know how to do it. And I think it's an extreme measure to go remote again, and there is no appetite for that. And I don't think it's going to happen, nor do I think it's really necessary.
We've been doing it for 2 years and it's really a drag. What's so difficult now is we know how all that stuff works. Google Classroom is nothing. Working in Zoom is nothing. Hybrid classes, we're used to that stuff. But now everybody's just so tired. Everybody's so done with this pandemic. I had somebody telling me, I'm done with COVID, but COVID's not done with us. So what makes it more difficult now is we're just tired of having to do this. And that's very different than in the beginning.
I was hired as the director the fall before COVID hit. So in my first year as director here at Stafford, we had to figure out how to take a very hands-on education and go virtual with it. So that was definitely a challenge. I think it relies on a different skill set than I ever anticipated. I was just learning the job and had to learn something that nobody ever taught us how to do, and that was to lead through a pandemic.
With music, it's kind of hard to do music remotely, and last year we were not allowed to play or sing in school at all. So that really limited what we were able to do during COVID. But this year, it's still hard because we have students, whenever they have to quarantine, they are out for a long period of time, and it's hard to catch them up with work because we're not offering the remote option. But on the other side, it's awesome for us to be able to do what we normally do and to, be rehearsing in school and be making music together.
I think you really find out how important, sports and activities are to the students that, attend the high school and the middle school, because it's a big part of their socialization. It's made people really, starting with the coaches, just to learn how to take it one day at a time, have a long-range plan, but just be able to knock it off in small pieces. And just allowing yourself to be a lot more flexible. I think that's one thing that I've learned, and I think the kids have learned, that things change on a day-to-day or moment-by-moment basis. And I think you just have to, it's the old half-full, half-empty routine with a glass. I think you have to look at it as everything is half full, because you could do a number on yourself psychologically and just be in a bad mood all the time. And I just don't want to do that, and neither do the kids.
Could you still have school when no one was in the building? The clear answer would be no, you just can't do that. But we did it, and the students did it, and the adults figured out solutions to all of those problems. So I think if there's one good thing that has come from it, I think a good thing is the fact that it shows just how far we can stretch and still be able to get the job done. There have been a lot of unpredictable things, which increases the level of stress. I think it's become pretty regular and pretty normal though. So even trying to come up with new solutions has become pretty consistent, so that has decreased the level of stress. I think what's happening now is there's a lot of invention. There's a lot of coming up with solutions for things that we never sort of dealt with before.
I think all school leaders, we're constantly reminding people, our staff and our students, to take care of their social emotional health and making sure that they're doing well. And I think we sometimes forget that about ourselves. And we need reminders to do that. And but we're getting through. I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm hoping, and we're gonna do it. And we have a great school community here at Stafford, and we've all pushed through together, and we've all helped each other. We've all had good days, bad days, and we bring each other up when we need to. And that's what makes our job easier, because it's a real team here.
Orange, Vermont. Chartered in 1781. A small town in central Vermont, home to a rich history and beautiful landscape. There are views that will make you feel small and insignificant to the ever-turning world around us, but in the best way imaginable. At first glance, it may just look like farmlands and acres of forest, but within those are the keys to life.
another walk to the DMV. Get another learner's permit with a picture of me. I'd put it in my wallet along with my $4 and the condom that's still in there that is probably expired. I'd leave home for New York, but New York is where I'm from.
I'm fairly new to this place, but I've experienced more of what it means to be truly alive here than I have anywhere else. It's opened up my eyes to the plentiful resources Mother Nature provides for each and every one of us, even if we may not be deserving of such a sacred gift. We discard our trash in her waters, and on the beautiful landscape we have carved, cut, and dug our invasive roots into. We neglect what our planet is giving us to replace it with convenience and profit for those who are trying to rob us of what it actually means to exist here. Taking our focus from the world around us that's so desperately crying for our care, love, and attention.
I'll be just like a cassette that you've taped up the tabs of to put something new on it. And when I hit record, God only knows what I will be. And if there is no God, then it's a better mystery.
I ask you to please acknowledge these cries, for they one day will be replaced with your own. But your cry will consist of regret. Why didn't I pay more attention? What meant more to me than the well-being of the very ground I walk upon?
Is half full of nothingness.
Through watching the news and being a part of the community, we have heard many stories about Sears Lane, but something about the coverage just never seemed right. We felt there was something missing from the story, and wanted to discover what was not being told.
I think just like, as soon as I stepped foot in that place, like I really got the sense of like what it meant and like its historical kind of like resonance to the people there in the city, like, cause yeah, it was just like basically like a neighborhood, you know?
Together we decided to look to our local community members who played a part in Sears Lane to hear the story from a first-hand experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just step foot in the place and you just realize how special it is, and you realize that, like, while you're there, like, you're participating in, like, a tipping point in the city.
What was so important about the Sears Lane community?
I guess it's always sort of been a place for homeless people that overspill, and but I guess, and the neighbors didn't mind that, and unbeknownst to me, I was told that there was some sort of, I don't know how else to put this except to say unsavory activity going on. I was really grateful that I had somewhere to go. It was difficult because we had to use porta potties and there were no showers and not really anywhere to cook. We were working on putting together a temporary kitchen, and I know that somebody was building a little shack, and that got torn down. But I'm really grateful to have had that stepping stone.
There was some infrastructure that was under construction at Sears Lane, like a communal kitchen and gardens. There was, in both the spring and the fall, big cleanup operations at Sears Lane to get trash removal there, to, you know, make it a nicer place to live and hang out. And then when the eviction notice was issued, like, that stuff continued and accelerated and amplified to sort of make a statement that, like, this is a place that the community cares about. One, it's a place that's livable and can take care of itself, and like, Sears Lane can be good neighbors.
Well, I know, like, people in the community were kind of working there for a while to build this, like, kitchen that was really sick, that got demolished by the city. Also attempt to build like basically a home, small home there, also demolished by the police. And so like I hadn't really been like at Sears Lane physically up until like the point where the city was threatening to evict the residents.
Lots of people like building a kitchen in Sears Lane and like doing other projects over the summer. Like nobody was at Sears Lane because there was like a better place that they were just like, no, I'm not going to go here.
If people had homes in Sears Lane and it was so important to those living there, what led up to Sears Lane being demolished by the Burlington Police Department?
I'm sure from my perspective, it was a little bit unsightly, I guess. We attempted to do some cleanup and it always got messed up pretty quickly thereafter.
Over the last few years, there have been like neighbors complaining about the presence of folks living at Sears Lane. At the same time, there was like also neighbors that supported Sears Lane, so there's conflict over that. And the population living at Sears Lane the summer before Sears Lane was evicted was higher than in past years. There was like a drug raid at Sears Lane that turned up some meth, and one guy got in trouble for like pointing like a water gun or like some sort of fake gun at the cops, and then that was used as a pretense for this eviction, and that everybody at Sears Lane had like 5 days to get out. That was extended multiple times because of activism defending Sears Lane, both residents and their allies.
The city's narrative was there was a lot of illegal activity going on, and it was dangerous, which is a tried and true tactic. And so there was like, you know, an increase in police presence. There were lots of like supposed complaints. I'm uncertain because the city never actually said any of the numbers. It was a lot of vague fear-mongering. So I don't know how much of it was actually true, because hearing from people, there were not many complaints over the summer, and then it kind of ramped up towards the fall, but nothing had really changed in terms of the people living at Sears Lane.
Like there was that legal battle going on that some of the residents were leading. That was like, it was kind of this dual tactic of like trying to like drag out the process for as long as possible while preparing for some form of like resistance or pushback. But in terms of like what's leading up to it, like long scale, it's just, I mean, it's just continuing the policy of like gentrification and like forcing out all the working class people who live in Burlington.
How was the news of the eviction handled by the community? What were the reactions?
And then basically like the police and the bulldozers just didn't show up, and they didn't show up, and they didn't show up for about a month. And in that time, like people who were living at Sears Lane and their friends and political allies would show up to defend Sears Lane every time there was a cop in the area, every time we heard that they were going to be evicted on any given day. But like people had lives and schedules, and eventually like that resistance was sort of like worn down. People had to get back to work, and not just like, I know I skipped multiple obligations, bailed on like lecturing in a class at UVM that I told the professor I was going to be there, and then I sent them an email last minute being like, I got to go down and defend Sears Lane, and the cops didn't even show up that day. So eventually, like, there was just very few people left living at Sears Lane, not that many people left, and the eviction was able to proceed without as much resistance. You know, in hindsight, like that was their tactic.
In terms of like how people grew there, I mean, I feel like it was honestly like, it was a mixed bag in terms of the relationship between like the activists, which is kind of norm in Burlington, and the residents. I think like there were a lot of people kind of like rolling in there for like, I don't want to like, well, also, I mean, kind of like for sightseeing, or like people wanted to be part of the moment, which like it's understandable that you want to be part of that, but creates a dynamic between the activists and the residents that wasn't really like good.
There was a lot of contact between the young activist groups that were interested in defending Sears Lane and the folks that had been living there. And within the group of folks that had been living in Sears Lane, there was like a pretty big diversity of like desires and opinions. Like a lot of people just wanted to get out and find somewhere else safe to be when when the eviction notice was issued, whereas other people said, this is my home, I want to stay here, can you all help me defend it? And so the like allies of Sears Lane, our job was to like meet those needs individually while like maintaining a pretty strong collective front that like Sears Lane needs to stay.
We wrote letters to the mayor, and my letter was fairly short and sweet and just pretty much asking, what is it we would need to do to be invited to stay?
What did the city of Burlington's role in this eviction look like? What was the narrative they put forward as to the events leading up to the eviction, along with the eviction itself?
The most apparent thing was it bought more time, just straight up, because people were given like, I don't even remember how many days it was, but it was like a week or two at first, and then it was almost 2 months before they knocked down everything. And the city recognized that it couldn't just like, as aggressively as it was trying to fuck people over without, some sort of response. And so I do think there was a lot more effort on the part of the city to make sure that the people living at Sears Lane had access to resources that they would not have otherwise had access to. But ultimately, like, Sears Lane is gone. It was a lot of, because Sears Lane was getting bigger. Sears Lane's been around, like, my whole life. I, have always just, walked by it, and there's always been people living there. But over the last few years, it's, grown because, that's what happens when you gentrify a town, is, poor people don't really have places to go.
Murder and mass displacement. And, yeah, I mean, I would describe the whole city's policy as, genocidal, Like, you look at the language Moreau uses, he's talking about how he wants to, eradicate homelessness, extinguish homelessness by doing what? By destroying people's self-made, self-built homes and then pretending they don't exist and saying, oh, we'll just build some, semi-affordable housing and that's the problem. I mean, I think it was building up for a long time. It was, a long time coming. All these threats of, making people leave, all this kind of, scheming to, put under the management of a nonprofit and under the management of social workers, which allegedly the city would say no nonprofits want to do that and step up to it, which is not true.
How are we as a community helping the people of Sears Lane, and how have they been affected moving forwards?
Yeah, I mean, I was there when the bulldozers were there, demolishing shit, and I mean, it was heartbreaking to just stand there and just watch it happen and not be able to do anything. Extremely disempowering, but infuriating.
Now I'm in a hotel. I managed to stay at a new place most of the winter, but they got full a couple of nights in a row, and I froze in my car, so I finally broke down and called 211.
The folks who were living at Sears Lane at the time are now sort of spread all over. I know a lot of them got temporarily housed in motels, as unhoused folks have gotten in during the pandemic frequently. That didn't turn out to be a stable situation. It was never promised to. It was sort of you get 30 days in a motel and then we're going to find you housing, but it turned out to be one motel to the next for a lot of folks. Few people, now that it's springtime, are transitioning back to living outside. Yeah, I think people have gone in different directions. Some people have left Burlington, I've noticed.
I think so. I think because that was the first space in which there were a large number of people prepared to do a direct action in resisting the police. And I think that's a really big thing. And that was, honestly, my one hope was to push the Overton window a little further to the left. And that definitely happened. And there is more to come, at least in my brain and scheming things. They destroyed Sears Lane because they want to put a highway there. They still want to put a highway there. There's, I don't think we need more cars and more pollution to destroy our environment. So I have ideas. So, it's not over as far as I'm concerned.
Sears Lane is and was more than a community, more than a place where the unhoused of Burlington gathered and strove to build a community for themselves. Sears Lane is a testament to the failures of our society, to how some of the most successful and well-off find those less fortunate as unwanted and distasteful, forcibly relegating them to the fringes of society. As such, the discrimination against such marginalized communities becomes ingrained into the institutions, supposedly designed to help and protect them.
I'd like to say one more thing just briefly. To all the people that made donations, the food, the clothing, amenities and whatnot. I know there are, we're here at Distro and feeding people in need, and we sometimes get donations for camping gear and other things that people need in order to sleep outside, even in the winter. And I just want to say thank you so much, everyone. I can say from experience that I don't know where I'd be without your generosity. And so, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.